Greetings and welcome to the People's Ascension for another work in progress workshop episode. Today we are going to be talking with Brandon here of Pagoda Games about his new upcoming crowdfunding deck building cyberpunk TTRPG. Very interesting looking game. Let me just make sure that everything is working correctly from a tech standpoint. I should be coming through just fine, and I believe if I click this button here, Brandon will be coming in just fine. Yeah, there was somebody in chat who let Brandon know that they could hear him talking. So thank you for that. I don't think we gave anything away. Talked about anything weird, but yeah, OBS, I mean, it's probably user error, but I like to blame OBS. Anyway, let's get into this. So People's Ascension, RPGs Uncovered, WIP Workshop. This is a new series that I'm doing to reach out to creators and learn more about them and their games, because this is a great time for everybody to get into a new game. There's a lot. There's a big buildup of people wanting new types of games and new genres and new play styles when it comes to games. But so many people are intimidated or somehow put off by learning new games. That's more tackled in the RPGs Uncovered side of things, where we go into bite-sized tutorials and do streams about how the game works and tools for players and GMs, and of course the demo play series. So that is currently every Sunday if you want to check that out. But on this side of things, because there are new creators working on games all the time, there's new games being crowdsourced all the time, new games coming out all the time. I wanted to reach out to new creators and creators of new indie games and give them a place to talk about their game while it's still being developed and it's still being crowdsourced, because the best way to make sure that a new game comes out is to make sure that people know about it. So that's why we have Brandon on today. You just recently launched your Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, it's just over. It's got 19 days left, is what last time I checked, and I do check relatively often, a couple of times a day.
Oh yeah, I'm sure constantly checking that update. Yeah, so the link for that, I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat right now while I continue with my own spiel. But go check out the Kickstarter for C22. It looks like an incredible game. There is a freelancer's guide, a free version of the game on their website that you can pick up, and of course that's going to be built upon with the Kickstarter funding. But as for myself and this channel, if you like what we're doing, if you want to see more of what we're doing, whether it's RPGs Uncovered, that series, or whether it's the WIP Workshop series that we're doing right now, the best way to help me out is really, honestly, just to tell more people about it, get more people watching the shows, whether it's here on Twitch or over on our YouTube. We have that link down below, or just engaging in the social media. Come hang out on Twitter. I do a lot of posting on Twitter. Go leave comments on YouTube. Press all the bells and whistles and buttons and thumbs and whatever it may be. That's the best way to help me out. Just getting all the AI overlords to pay attention to me. It really helps out. Uh, Also, come hang out with us on Discord. I have a uh, fairly quickly growing community of indie TTRPG creators. A whole bunch of creators on there, as well as other just like players and general enthusiasts. You have plenty of people to talk to. But if you're looking for a new game, I'm sure you can find someone who, if they're not making one, they can at least point you in the direction of somebody who is, or one that is already out. Great group of people on there. We got everything from sci-fi to high fantasy, cyberpunk, horror. It's all over the place. It's a great community. That link is down below as well. And of course, I know it's It's trying times for everybody because the world is a mess, but we're not here to talk about that. But if you do like what we're doing and you want to support in a monetary way, we do have our support sites, both Patreon and Ko-Fi. They both get the same updates at about the same time. I will link that in chat as well. That is mostly at this point support rewards for RPGs Uncovered specifically, getting character sheets and enemy stat sheets, crisis sheets, whatever it may be for that particular game, getting player insight, getting GM insight, getting after shows, all kinds of stuff on there for you to check out. But as we grow, if WIP Workshop really takes off, if people are interested in any sort of behind the scenes sort of things, or if I start getting other collaborations or other giveaways or anything from creators, that will also be something that we might put even more into the support sites. So if you can, go check that out, because that's the best way to improve the quality and quantity of the shows we have here on the People's Ascension. All right, so I think I've been yammering on for quite enough. Let's get on to the interview itself. I'm really excited to talk about C22. I love me some cyberpunk games. I love me some sci-fi games. There's a lot of great stuff in here that really resonates with my own interests in the genre, and it's a very unique rule set from what I'm used to, because it's not a dice-based game. It's a deck building, a standard playing card based game. So let me throw it over to Brandon of Pagoda Games. Uh, Welcome, Brandon. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a fun time. Just to point out your Discord again, it's been a fun time hopping into that. I've seen some pretty cool other developers on there. Developers of Shiver
Mm-hmm.
and the developers of Zim, are both also on there.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some
Yep.
fantastic Kickstarters going on right now as well. That aside, so Freelancer's Guide is at first I thought it was like a sci-fi thing, and it does play pretty much. At times you can play a lot like a Cowboy Bebop episode,
Mm-hmm.
but other times I feel like when the way that I've approached some of the world building, it's a lot more cyberpunk, a lot more anti-corporate, anti-megacorp, and that uh, and there's things like cybernetics that I'm trying to add to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is that's sort of where the world looks like. The mechanics are the deck of 22 playing cards represents your character, and since I'm a very character advancement, character growth focused like developer player,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the deck of cards just does a lot of things that a dice can't, and we'll kind of get into that as we talk
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
now. But yeah, that's biggest selling points of the thing, and I'm very excited about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I already linked the Kickstarter in chat, but do you have any announcements or anything you want to plug as far as the Kickstarter? Go shield that.
Um, yeah, that's it. Please click on it, read the stuff. There's hopefully a lot of a good glimpse of like what the world is like. The whole book is written in this style of the freelancers themselves in the galaxy are showing you what it's like to be a freelancer, giving you the tools it takes. So that's the whole world building style, the whole storytelling style. You'll get snippets of their opinions and their thoughts and little comments written throughout that just sort of reveal what the world is like
Mm-hmm.
and what it's like to live in the megacorp infested galaxy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I see it has a nice, fairly succinct overview of the basic mechanics of the game. Details about what the book would include if you're interested in all of the things that the rule book would include. Support materials, everything from character sheets, um, map sheets, ships, stuff like that, missions, and as you said, a nice glimpse into the setting with quotes from characters, information on the corporations, glimpses into some of the species. There's a lot of good stuff on here, so feel free to check that out. I'd suggest you go check that out while we're talking, and definitely lend some support if you can, because I mean, there's a pledge for as little as $1, and the PDF for 20, and every little bit helps. And nowadays, with a lot of digital gaming, a lot of online gaming, uh, PDFs are great to have as far as gaming resources go. So go check out the Kickstarter, and we'll dive into our interview here. Uh, so the way I like to do these, I say this being the second episode, is that I like to get to know the creators as much as I like to get to know their games, because you can learn a lot about the game by how their inspirations and experiences leading up to that. So Brandon, Pagoda Games. What tell us about Pagoda Games. How did that start off, and how's that been for
Okay.
you? Making
Yeah,
your own.
so the story of Pagoda Games actually doesn't start in tabletop.
Hmm.
It was me and three other friends kind of started this to make a puzzle game for PC. Well, we were determining what game we wanted to make, and it ended up being a puzzle game that was a lot like Lemmings. And that was about 4.5 years of development, but we made it. We released it on Steam. Uh, it's not great. I can tell you that much. Um, it had some unique mechanics, but we honestly were. It was a good learning process for all of
Hmm.
us, and we all kind of went our own ways. With some of us getting jobs at big game developers,
Hmm.
others us becoming web stuff. I went to go into the automotive world, but in that time, like I was still doing some game stuff, but never really into the TTRPG world until I started playing them in college, but I didn't really ever think of developing for them. And then I played a game called Gloomhaven, which is not a TTRPG, but it's kind of a TTRPG masquerading as a board game.
Hmm.
And I really liked what they did with the cards. And I went, "This is fun. I wonder if I can do this. I want this deck building piece in my TTRPG games." Essentially, I wanted my D&D game because that's what I was playing at the time. I was like, this would be really interesting if I could level my character up by swapping out cards and be like, okay, my character has more of these, so my character is faster because the numbers in my cards mean that they're faster, right? I don't know. An interesting idea. So it was all mechanics first, and you'll probably see that throughout my talking about this. And I I guess I just spent like 2 years developing that, and once I kind of got that settled, I I realized I wanted to make some settings, and that's kind of where I am now. I've went. This was the setting and a story I wanted to tell, and as I've kind of been developing it more and more, I gathered a lot of the honestly like that anti-work, the Reddit's anti-work mentality that would sometimes show up on the front page. I'd be like, oh, this actually inspires some good writing to go into this setting, and I felt like it fit the time. So yeah,
So the
that's sort of the story of it.
so the mechanics of the game, the card based aspects of the game came before you even decided on a sci-fi cyberpunk sort of genre.
Yes.
Interesting. Uh, so that's an impromptu question I have here. Do you have any plans for expanding this into other genres then, or making a sort of
Yes.
system agnostic rule set?
So actually, I do have a system agnostic rule set. That's what came first, and that is on C22's system.com
Mm,
slash slash the basics is where you'll kind of start the whole thing.
right.
And and I what's it called? Oh, sorry. And then I want to make, so I've made a couple other examples. I made like a tactical pirate adventure to show off how I can do combat. Combat's rather fun in that. Like I really enjoy combat. That was like first thing I showed off at conventions. And I've done a like a cursed mount like 80 19 or 1800s town like filled with Native American curses and such. Really interesting setting that and story that I got to tell there, but I have not developed that into a setting. So I've
Mm,
done a couple different pieces with it. I did a horror thing on a cruise ship, and I do want to make a steampunk setting. It's
mm,
like steampunk is where I want to put things, but I do really like this cyberpunk one. Right now, that's what I'm all about. I like gear. I like technology. I like
mm-hmm.
determining what's the morality of certain things. Like that's like is just because technology can do it doesn't mean it should, but also the fact that like we can do it with technology, but you have to pay money. Like that sort of uh, setup and that setting is just interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. I'm a big fan of sci-fi and specifically cyberpunk settings. And it's clear that you're familiar with them, and you've hit a lot of the main tropes, the main talking points, the main key features in a cyberpunk sci-fi setting. And we'll talk more about those later. Um, yeah, so with this particular project with C22 and the cyberpunk of it, has this been a solo project for you, or do you have a team behind you?
It's just been me,
Hmm.
really. I mean, I started off working with a good friend that actually he's a dev in my Discord, but we're working on a couple things together at the beginning, but it was just not like something he wanted to put as much time towards as I
Mm-hmm.
did. So this was even before I finished the SRD, the actual core rule set behind it. So the cyberpunk thing has pretty much just been me. I've had help from friends and playtesters along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the the grunt work has been
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of solo creators, and it's a lot to do on your own. I know I'm slowly trying to
Yeah,
tackle it myself on top of all of this streaming stuff I'm doing. So I know it's a lot. Uh, so
yeah,
this is something that's clearly taken you a lot of time and effort.
yeah. Yeah, it has. It's been about like I said, about 4 years of just messing around with mechanics, and I finally got it to a point where I'm ready to show something off. I do think that the Freelancer's Guide to a Profit Focused Living book is the best representation of the rules because to me, I think um, I think the mechanics are exciting, but
Hmm.
like other people don't really care about that. I know I figured this out that I'm the anomaly here.
Mm.
It's about the stories and the characters that you can be, right? And it's how you represent those stories and characters, and that's what the mechanics are good for. The mechanics will keep you playing. Like it's very game like, and it's very fun in that engaging manner. But until you know what story and what character you want to be and how you want to go about telling and living in this world,
Hmm.
I think that's what really sells
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Really gets people excited.
And of course you determine what that is, who you are, through the mechanics. So
Yeah.
some people get more excited from the mechanic side of things, from the statistics side of things, and some people are more focused on the character driven side of things and narrative side of things. But they're really, I mean, a good system really melds them together really well.
Yep. I've I'm always so I'm definitely more of a mechanics driven developer, but when I like the mechanics are to make a certain experience, and I think each mechanic expresses an experience in a certain way,
Hmm.
right? Like pulling blocks from a Jenga tower is a lot different than rolling a d20. Even rolling 2d6s is different than rolling a d20. One's a lot swingier than the other. And that translates into a feeling that you get while you're playing the game.
Hmm.
And I think that's an important aspect is to take the mechanics that represent the feeling you like most to fit the story. Just like I think that Dread is the best horror setting or horror mechanic just because of staring at a Jenga tower, hoping it's not going to fall
Hmm.
is scary.
Yeah, yeah. And the physical involvement of knowing if it does
Yeah,
fall, you did it. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. So what you talked a little bit about your prior experience first in video games and then into board games, and you of course mentioned D&D, as most people do. It's the gateway
yep.
game. What initially got you inspired to create? this system?
Um, yeah, honestly, it was maybe a combination of a little bit of like a combination of some frustration with the health pool sponges from D&D, but
Mm,
also mostly I wanted just to see if I could make the mechanic work. Like in this case, it was very much just I made this cool mechanic. Can it become a whole game? Right? Like that's and other times I've made stuff, I tried to create a certain experience. For example, I'm gonna plug something other random thing I have.
sure.
Uh, I made a game trying to capture the feeling of just you've you're on a submarine crew and you've just finished your mission and over the like speakers you hear depth charges dropped and all you can do is sit and wait and hope that you're not dead because that's not really something that RPGs do.
Mm,
Like that's just doesn't that's something I haven't really found somewhere else. I'm like I can do this with the Plinko board. For those of
interesting.
you who don't know what Plinko board is, Price is Right. You take a little they've got like money slots in the bottom and you take something and you drop it, and if it lands in that slot, you get that amount of money. That the money part is not important to the Plinko board, but it's a bunch of pegs as the thing drops down and bounces. Well, it turns out that if you want to make the puck go to the certain way that you want, you can put rubber bands on the pegs. So the game is about explaining how you've gotten away with the heist by putting rubber bands onto the pegs
Mm,
so that the pucks don't fall and hit your spaceship as you're escaping. That is the Plinko RPG. It's a very great convention game, but
yeah.
uh, nobody has a 4 foot by 3 foot Plinko board.
Mm, right.
So it's a little prohibitive, but the game is up there for free.
Mm,
And then I made a game about, because I want to make something with a Jenga tower. I made a game about falling in love. I think it's called the Tower of Love. It's a one-page RPG. It's out there somewhere. I can't sell it because I don't own the font and I don't want to pay for the font. So I just threw it on there. So yeah, those are inspired by like a certain experience or feeling that I wanted to
hmm
create, and that's usually what I recommend for developers is to start with that ideal experience. I just for C22, I happen to start with a deck of cards and go, I can make this do something.
Yeah, yeah. I can definitely see the background in board games over general tabletop role playing games here because all three of those games using three different physical
Yeah,
motions of action, very different from what you're used to in traditional TTRPGs. Yeah, so it seems you are a lot more focused on the mechanic side of things, and even more than just statistics of dice rolls on the would you say physical involvement side of things, the using unconventional means of randomization side of things? What
I
draws you to using not dice?
I don't know. Maybe it's just that I was bored with them. I played a
Sure.
lot of Magic the Gathering when I was
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So I like cards. I play a lot of board games. Like when I was back in Michigan, which if you've gathered right now, it's morning. I'm not in Michigan. Um, I I played like every Tuesday. I would play board games with some friends, and we'd just have a board game night. So we'd go through lots of different board games. I have uh, an entire like um, I don't know. I had like a parachute bag here. An example, if everyone knows the size of a parachute bag, I can fill 4 parachute bags with the amount of board games that I have. So
Oof.
I've played a lot of board games,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think that just translates over. I think we, as an RPG developers, can learn a lot from some of the structure that board games provide. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that RPGs are ultimately more fun because there's a little more creativity and expression involved in them, which is what I want to strive
Mm-hmm.
for.
Mm-hmm. And now that you mention it, I can see a lot of influence in board game structuring and playstyle structuring. So that's something I may bring up again, down in some of the rules discussion. Uh, okay, so yeah, we talked about your experiences and what led you into C22, both from a mechanics standpoint and from a setting standpoint. What can you tell us about Well, let me put it this way. Prior to right now, you said you obviously already have the freelancer's guide. I got it open right now. A freelancer's guide to a profit-focused living. That's a real cyberpunk sort of title. I like it. I like it. There's a lot of great stuff in here, but it does feel a little it's the foundation. It's a great foundation, but it is a foundation. What are your plans with the Kickstarter and with crowdfunding for it to expand from the freelancer's guide? Give us the
Right
quick
now,
highlights of the book you're planning on putting out.
right now the goal is to get quite a bit more art in. I have somebody who's done, like, he did the original layout and art, the art style that I'm using for the whole thing, but he didn't really do the layout of the current one, but he did that. I'm gonna have him take a look at it, get some more editors going through this just to clean up some of my writing. And um, I want to make a lot of ships.
Mm,
I've got that as quite a big budget. I'd like a lot more battle maps for ships because I think that's a big part of just like owning and naming your own ship. A lot comes from that, and a lot of fun is like, I know I enjoy that. Like, this is my room. I live here.
mm-hmm,
It's like I'm labeling it right now on this ship. So I wanted more ship battle maps like that, and that was honestly, that right there is sort of the bare bones. It's just uh, that plus adding a little bit more of my playtesting information, adding more mechanics involved with weapons and such,
mm,
and a little bit more playtesting, a little bit more monsters. And it was mostly that level of additions, I think. Oh, and in the book, I think that you have, there's a few. There's only 2 or 3 corporations, and I've got 5 that will be in the final one. So more items, I guess, is the last piece, and then
mm-hmm,
hopefully player bases. That's sort of what I'm aiming. It's more of that end game expansion stuff. If for some, if in some way we make it past that funding goal, I start adding more corporations. Cybernetics will be part of what comes on. I would, with this setting, I would like to go and add more corporations, more items, more. Uh, I have ideas for other races or
mm-hmm.
species is the better term for it. Um, I have ideas for other types of magic and tech powers, and I think finally, ship combat would be something that I think would be interesting to try and explore if that's
Right,
possible.
right. Awesome. Yeah, that of course is information again you can find on the Kickstarter site itself. There's a breakdown of what to expect in the book, as well as support materials and all kinds of other fun stuff. Okay.
Just to note, what a couple of things I said are mostly like stretch goals that I have not written on there because obviously we are not funded.
Right.
So if I'm not funded, I'm not going to put stretch goals because I don't even know if we'll hit that target.
Sure. Sure. But stretch goals are always good to keep in mind because you never know when
Yep.
you're gonna creep over or get a big influx. So it's good to know that you do have stretch goals, and not just from the Kickstarter point of view, but from the continuation of your own development in this and continuing the game and keeping it relevant and consistently developing, knowing you have stuff, you know,
Yeah.
constantly coming down the pipe.
And
It's encouraging. Yeah.
in addition to some of those, I do want to make more like missions. Just I think more
Hmm.
missions for people to play, sort of in that Shadowrun style of, uh, since you're all Shadowrunners there, you will like start this mission, and a mission is sort of an enclosed thing that you come back to the hub, and then everyone can like collect the money from that run, and you can do another mission whether it's connected or not. And
Hmm.
that sort of gameplay style fits this cyberpunk setting very well.
Yeah.
And I think more missions can just easily fit into wherever you want. You just decide where you want to go, or they inspire people to make their own, which is a
Right.
big part of the setting itself, the gameplay. It's like the mechanics are there to inspire you to be creative.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
hoping to give you enough to springboard and make your own great things. Because whatever I tell you to make won't be as great as what you make for your table.
Mm.
That's just that's just how it will be.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's table is what they make of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do notice on your website, there's a section for progress of demos and one shots and progress of your settings
Oh
and
yeah.
campaigns. So you do seem to have missions, demos, one shots, whatever you want to call them, in development. Is that something that you plan
Uh,
on including, or are those going to be supplemental materials?
I'm gonna pull that open directly. Oh, I have to fix that. Let's see. Milcom Shipyard Infiltration should actually be up and ready. I have illustrations that I'm hoping to fund for that. It's a mission for this setting. If we
Nice.
go on to, I've got The Stranger. That one I finished. I can run it at conventions myself. I don't know if I'm ever going to put it up because apparently that's a touchy subject. Um, I tried to do a essentially I'm doing don't judge a book by its cover, but it's uh it's 1800s uh 1800s America after the Civil War, and there's a mining town that's being plagued by everybody having curses. But the curses aren't really a problem. Everyone just kind of lives with them until a black priest comes into town, and everybody then, being this isolated racist town, starts to accuse them of making like, or then somebody dies, and then
Hmm.
accuses them of being the cause of the problem, and the players are going to sort of investigate all of these weird curses. But I take a lot of Native American folklore, and honestly, it's just a really touchy subject that I don't know if I'm ever going to go and fully publish because I don't know if I can do it right. I might take it and then bake it into something else and use it as inspiration to somewhere else, so it's no
Hmm.
longer real world and it's fantasy. I might try and take
Hmm.
inspirations like that, but I don't really know. Um, Flagship steampunk setting. I haven't named, obviously. It's flagship. One that I want. Like, this is Freelancer's Guide is the first setting to show that this can be done. It can be very fun, and the cyberpunk is honestly really like I really like cyberpunk. It's my second favorite. Um, yeah, it's my second favorite genre. The steampunk is what I want to make next, and I want to explore a few more design things with that. And then I've been working on what I call Samasaheyu, as to try and do like a choose your own adventure book almost is what those are like. And I tried to write one of those, and I just haven't had time to write.
Hmm.
That's it. That's really the problem with that one.
Sure, sure. And I can definitely relate to that. But those are all separate from the current C22 Kickstarter.
Yes,
Yeah.
those last three that I mentioned, those are all separate from Freelancer's Guide to a Profit Focused Living. Yeah.
Above that, the demos and one shots.
Um, Technically, Milcom Shipyard Infiltration is available on my Discord, I believe.
Nice.
Um, but I just don't have illustrations in there, so I don't feel like it's completely final. But the whole
Hmm.
game has been run quite a few times. I like to use that as a intro into this setting because it's you're going to rob the most secure shipyard in the entire galaxy. That's a fun adventure for more like mid to high level um, freelancers.
Hmm. Is that something you plan on including in the core book, or is that going to be supplementary?
That'll be a supplement to. It's one of the missions that'll come with the Kickstarter for whenever this is funded. People will get that plus like a slightly edited, polished up version of the PDF right at the start. But that won't be the final version of the game. I'll be adding the art, doing my
Mm,
additions, and then aiming to have the next piece out uh, next year.
nice, nice. All right. Uh, well, a lot of great stuff coming down the pipe with the Kickstarter. So we've talked a bit about the setting on a basic level, sci-fi, cyberpunk. To distill it down a little bit, C22 looks like it can generally span the galaxy, or at least a loosely defined large section of space. Uh, However, at least in the freelancer's guide, there isn't much in the way as far as pre-established star charts or planets. That said, there is a lot of scattered information about the setting itself and the lore of the area. As we said before, corporations. There's these large cosmic paranatural forces. Information on the most high tech civilizations and technologies and whatnot. Uh, Now, really, we could probably spend the rest of our time just talking about the setting because I'm a setting buff.
Okay, let's
What
do it then.
can could you give us a synopsis of what you see as your C22 setting?
So, I have this as a separate piece right now, but after talking with you just now, I realized I really should include this into the dealer section of the book. I have a system or a design where I can use playing cards to build out a sector map on a
Mm-hmm.
galaxy. Let's see if I actually have an. I might even be able to show you guys right here because I did a couple practice runs on my notebook here. Oh yeah, here. So this it's a rule set for drawing out a bunch of sector maps, which I know that doesn't tell you too much, but it each of those like notations will tell you what type of planet is here, what type of space station, and you'll connect them all, and then I can say what megacorps exist. So I think to me, the world is sort of it's more in that stars without numbers style, where
Mm-hmm.
you'll kind of create what your sector of the galaxy looks like, and then your your team goes on missions to as a group you'll define what that next mission is, asking questions like um, okay, are there security cameras out this side of the building, and you go and the check is like, yeah, you find a couple here and there. It's like, okay, I want to see like what time this guy comes to and from work, and then you'll do a check for that, and I'll go, okay, well, you see that he hits the gym at this time, and then he actually ends up going to the salon after that, and then he goes to uh, the office, and these are the times. It's like, okay, well, now let's build our mission off of that. So I've got a lot of pieces where you as the group will build off the next mission, and then you'll go and yeah, run that mission, and it's about like I guess to me it's a little bit of that like corporate espionage style where you'll do a lot of things for or against certain companies, and you'll kind of pick a company that's going to be like, here, I'm going to work with this one, I'm going to take down this other one. And that's sort of how this works. And I think the whole setting kind of gets built out as you also create your own smaller companies that are not these megacorps that rule the galaxy, and work with them. And like that's I guess my approach is leaving it so that enough so that you have enough to start with your world building, but not enough to restrict you. Because I always got frustrated with other ones where it's like,
Mm.
well, I know there's a rule for how these drow, I guess, are supposed to act, or ogres act in this sort of way, but I have to go find that now
Mm-hmm.
rather than just be like, ogres like beef stew on Fridays. That's just a rule. That's that. Yeah, and to me, I like where I can just sort of let that happen, let
Mm-hmm.
the table define it. So I try to do a little bit more. What do I call it? Have you ever seen the movie John Wick?
Uh, Actually, no, or not more than bits and pieces. It's on my to watch list, but not yet. No.
Well, I'm not going to talk too much about the plot. I just want to talk about how they do certain world building.
Sure.
Uh, to me, I didn't even know what it was when I went to watch it the first time. So people were like, "Yeah, we're going to watch John Wick." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what this is." So I didn't know who John Wick was at the start, but it sort of unwraps or reveals this sort of world that he's worked in as he like comes back into it. So you learn about the Continental, and you go, oh, there's a whole hotel for like this, or they use these coins or whatever. Like they use these coins, and like a lot of little pieces that imply like seven other things, but they don't ever
Mm.
mention those seven other things. And it can go any which way. So I like that style of world building where you provide small pieces. Like in the book, I've mentioned like an author, right, that wrote about this species, and then this is what they wrote. I like that style of, oh, well, then there's authors that write about this species, and this is what they think about them. That's sort of my approach to it. I realized I probably got a little bit off topic there from your original question of like what your ideal C22 experiences, and from my experiences with my group, we it is a lot of little missions that eventually become interconnected because the team can go, oh, we're ready to go and take out this corporate executive now. Let's go and let's go to this planet and actually start working on that mission. Or other times they go, we don't know, we can't work with this corporate executive. Let's go try and find a contact that can sell me hard macro components for my ship because I want my ship to be able to jump, like some some number of kilometers forward, which I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But the jump a large distance ahead, essentially teleporting the ship. So they went and found a contact for a mission and then went and purchased that component. And I think that was that sort of I want to provide the tools for you to build out the world yourself, but I want to make sure those tools are robust enough that you don't feel like you're doing this alone because
Mm.
I don't think that's what you should be. It should be enough to inspire your own inspirations, whether you want it to be more Cowboy Bebop style where you're having a lot of hectic, crazy, silly plans that don't ever go right, or if you want a little bit more Ocean's 11 style where you've spent 30 minutes talking about your plan and you go through the whole thing without ever being spotted and you get out and you're like, great, mission accomplished. No one even knew we were here.
Mm.
Like, I want those to be both valuable, or if you want to go the more like corporate satire approach, like that's another option. I think that's available.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah,
like you can
definitely.
make fun of your current employer in a way. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
so
Uh,
those are all the things I try to inspire.
so
Go ahead. Sorry.
when it comes to defining the setting, defining the space, defining the planet, defining the region, defining the corporation, you plan on essentially what I like to call a vague but evocative approach. You provide examples for the big things, then you say extrapolate from this, or do you plan on
Yep.
actually creating like menus of choose from here, create a corporation, or put from all of these different tables. And how much
So
are you codifying from a rule standpoint, and how much are you promoting on a narrative level?
definitely, I will. It's going to be definitely more codified on the rules standpoint. But as I guess I would like since you really like setting and world building. I would like to see maybe or hear from you what you might want to see more of in it because I've got a couple ideas of things I'd like to include in the future. Like a book of contacts would just be you
Mm,
can go and open go like, hey, this is Red. Red sells weapons, and just a brief description of like that person to pull and put into your own game
mm,
because I think that stuff is very valuable. That's almost like um, it's almost like a table to roll off of, and I think that's super important components.
mm-hmm,
Um, More examples of non-megacorps because I could just include a couple pages of different satires of corporations that I think
mm-hmm.
would exist in the world that aren't necessarily the big five or if things go well, the big seven. Regardless, they're not the ones that have taken over the galaxy, but these are the ones that you're still going to have to work with.
Right,
Like
right.
somebody needs to make uh somebody there needs to be a company like Superb. They make bricks. They sell bricks with the name Superb written on them.
Mm,
I don't know if you know the reference, but there's a fashion company called Supreme,
mm.
and they sold a brick with the word Supreme on it,
Oh, huh.
and it sold out and people just they sell clothes, but apparently anything that has the word Supreme on it is now their like brand and logo. So
Mm,
I can make fun of that, and now there's a company called Superb, right? So
yeah.
I can do things like that with the system and setting that if that's something that's interesting to people, I can do. Just it makes the book a little bit longer, and the books that start to cost more.
Right, right, right. I know I'm a sucker for uh not just species information, but society and perhaps even like government information. Like seeing a nice factional breakdown of a galaxy map would be super interesting for me. But I don't know if that's really where your game focuses on.
I I would say that's actually that's not the way that I plan to approach this.
Mm-hmm. Which is fair.
I Yeah, because the species. It's about the megacorps
Right.
here. Species could be anywhere in the galaxy. Sure, this is maybe where they started,
So do the
and
megacorps control regions of space like nations
yes,
may today? Okay. Do you have plans
yep.
on codifying that, or again, vague but evocative? You could say here is a space, there is a space. It doesn't really matter spatially
It
where they
is.
are.
It's about yeah. It's about that they control the space. I'm not going to define where that is, and I think if I include the tool to build your own galaxy or build your own sector map, you'll then figure out where they
Right.
belong. Like they are in this corner of the galaxy. This is where their script is used. You have to use their money here.
So you have all the big players, you have all the proper nouns, but you're going to leave it up to the players to make their own setting and then populate it with all of these proper nouns.
Yeah, make their own galaxy sector, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's nice. I like that. I like that because it does allow for the best of both worlds. Because I know some people aren't big on their own world building, so they stick to what is in the book. But some people, I know, like myself, just as you said before, I rarely use established. It's easy to fall back on D&D. Established D&D lore, like orcs work this way, and drow always act in this way, and they have a city here and it's run by this person. I make all of that stuff up, but it is good to have those proper nouns to anchor things. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really cool approach. One of we've talked a little bit about. You've mentioned the species. This, I mean, just mentioning species to me kind of draws it a little. It kind of stretches the cyberpunk of it
Mhm.
into an overlapping sci-fi genre. Because when I think of other cyberpunk staples, cyberpunk, Shadowrun, um, that's all Earth based, that's all human based. Or in the case of Shadowrun, you have that fantasy element. What led you to make this a space based game, and not only a space based game, but one that is pretty well populated and controlled by different alien races? Why was that important to C22?
I think that was just uh more what I thought would be interesting rather than like cuz cyberpunk, like to be honest, I'd mentioned this I think in our talk before. I'm not super great at this marketing thing. I didn't even know that this game was really a cyberpunk game until about a month ago.
Mm,
I've been playing it as just as a standard sci-fi Firefly move around the galaxy do missions type thing. But I find that actually it would work really well. Um it worked really well. It was just like lock you in a planet. Corporations rule the planet. Now you got to get out of this like
hmm.
corporate hellscape.
Right.
Like that also that's a mission I'd like to write. I'd like
Mm.
to write a whole story mission about that.
I,
But
I think there's definitely, you could definitely do both here. I can see
yeah,
both flavors already built into this.
yeah, it does take a little bit of a tone change in either case, but they would both fit. But a reason I wanted other species was because somebody who came uh, from D&D or also Savage Worlds, it's to me it's important that people can express their characters in different ways, and the way that certain species are written might resonate with somebody else more than others. And
Sure.
apparently, like from what I've gathered so far, uh, I think Nixians have been the most popular
Mm. Do you
besides
have
humans.
do you have a species that resonates a certain way with you? If that's not too personal of a question. What is your favorite species? I know that's like picking your favorite kid.
I I don't really have one.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um, I let's see of I will tell you which. Okay, so for those who probably have not read the book, I wrote little poems or excerpts to explain each of the species. My favorite excerpt is the one from the Clebians. So that's there's my that's as close as I can get to my favorites. I'm really happy with the way that I represented humans and some of the comments I wrote about them. Just because I always find it's a struggle to write what are humans
No,
to
yeah,
non-humans,
right.
right? Like, 'cause we're only humans. So I was happy with mine. There's I think I've mentioned this before in some other interview, but there's a video called I think it's They're Made of Meat.
Mm,
It's a fictional short story of two aliens meeting in a cafe to talk about what humans are like. What are humans? And they go, well, they're made of meat. It's like, yes, but who controls the meat? No, no, they're all meat.
mm,
People, but where do the signals? It's like we need to talk what made the signals. No, 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 no. The humans made these machines that make the signals. Wait, so the meat made the machines? Like it's a really funny like take on it. Um, I'm I'm not that great of a writer. I'm not as good as that short story, but it did inspire quite a bit on how to explain some of this, and how to take like a different approach to explaining
mhm.
humans. I do
And
recommend that video.
yeah, that sounds very. I remember reading a comic like that once about aliens looking down on the Earth and all they saw were cars, so they thought the inhabitants
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
planet were cars, and then their brains would come out at night and go into these dwellings or something. Yeah, um,
yep, yep.
but I'm getting off topic now. When it comes to species, and I should also say this game is a classless game. You don't choose a
Mhm.
D&D class and you have a certain number of class abilities. Just like that, the species it's more of a flavor. Really, there's a
Yep.
few minor perks that you get from being a human or a plebeian, but you don't get like drastic stat changes or lists of various racial abilities, right? Am I
Yeah,
understanding that?
that is correct. And that's really the point of the system for me. And this is back to more of a mechanical thing. Is that I want your choices of what cards are in your deck to matter
Hmm.
a lot more, and that means that skills have to be. It doesn't really matter what species you are. The skills are mostly going to be the same.
Right.
Sure, the one mechanic that you get with each species is impactful. Uh, like the humans have, you may purchase a piece of obtainable equipment once per mission. In the narrative, you describe how you either find, barter, or arranged for the equipment to come into your possession. You still pay the cost, but like it's a normally you buy equipment outside of a mission, but this is more like, huh, we really need uh, a, a we really need a spider right now to hack through this door. Don't worry, I knew a guy in this space
Hmm.
station. He has one. I'm
Right.
gonna go get it,
Right.
and like that's what that's for.
Nice. Nice. So it does allow you to create uh the creation of your character and the expression of your character's abilities isn't hard coded into the how they look. Let's say that's something that's
Yeah,
been sweeping over the D&D community, non removing
that's fair.
racial abilities and racial traits from the D&D races. So that seems to already be pretty much built into this. It's a
Huh.
flavor.
Yeah, it is. The goal was to be a flavor, and because the kind of my core thoughts of the game itself was uh, enable creativity
Hmm.
and then meaningful choice, and so I try to make like those are the main targets. But if you look at like games like D&D or Pathfinder, exploration is a big part. And exploration means that you're exploring not just the world, but you're exploring the different magic spells that you can have. And there's a whole list of them, so you get to read them and explore how they're used in this situation. That's why they're hard coded in.
Hmm.
Or you go and look at the class and race combinations and go, oh, I'm going to explore what it means to be this race. And that means there's mechanical benefits to it. That's kind of how I think why when exploration is built in, it makes sense to have, more hard coded things, because now you can play it a second time and pick a different combination of race stuff and classes and get like a different feel.
Hmm.
You're exploring the system in that manner. In this case, I'm trying to allow you to be creative, and I don't necessarily need you to explore the system, because that just wasn't really the goal with this
Right.
specific one.
It's more about exploring the character and the story than exploring the system.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
explore the story that you want to tell. You don't need to explore the mechanic of the species. There's enough mechanics
Hmm.
there that it's like I, I'm going to talk on that point a little bit. One of the toughest things I had while playtesting this was the fact that I had to teach people how to use dice, right? Like I have a deck of 22 cards. People don't necessarily know how that's going to operate in the same way that dice is. You roll
Hmm.
die. Oh, it's a 15. I have a 15 on the check. I can add these other numbers too, but like ultimately you know how to roll die. For this, you draw cards, and then the card plus the suit matters. This does people pick it up within the first
Hmm.
hour or two of play. That's fine, but it does still take a little bit of time. Once it clicks, it clicks. You got it.
Right.
It's easy. But there was a lot of work refining that into an easy to understand.
Yeah. I can definitely see that because as I said before we started this interview, I've been looking over the book for the past couple days, here and there as I, create questions for us to talk about. It and I've never played a deck-based game before. I've I've played diceless games before, but never a deck-based game before. So sometimes I would get to rules, and I'd have to be like, wait, I need to go back and read that. But you're
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
Once you do catch on to how the card system works as opposed to how the dice system works, you can see parallels, and it does fall into place.
Yeah. I had some comment about that, and I don't remember. It was here, and now it's gone. Oh
Hmm.
well.
I think this would be a really interesting game once the Kickstarter is funded, once everything is complete, to look at this game from a full RPGs Uncovered standpoint and do an actual breakdown of the rules. Because it is a drastically different game from what anybody used to rolling dice would play. But it does look like it works. It's a different kind of complicated, but once you tune your brain, it it does flow. It
Yeah. I
does
mean,
have a there is a beauty to it.
thank you. There, yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to get that right. And I may be biased. And there was a friend I had in the chat a little while ago. I don't know if they're still there because I don't have that open on my monitor. But he's he'd also played it for quite a little while, and uh, hopefully he can attest to it too. That it is fun. Like
Hmm.
the I do lean more towards the game side, which is evident of my board game collection as well. And that was always a goal. Was the goal is the game needs to be fun.
Right, right.
Actually, you can see this game or listen to this game be played. I did do an actual play with the role players, and that is there's an option to go and like see how I like I'm the dealer for this.
Very nice. Is that on your website? Is there a link to that?
You know what? It might not be. I should include that somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. If you
I
I mean, don't worry about it right now, but if you find that link, I can post that as well because watching Let's Plays, actual plays are super helpful. I mean, that's why I do the demo play series on RPGs Uncovered. But yeah, we've talked about your own experiences. We've talked about the setting, and we're about an hour in at this point. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the game, the rules itself, which seems to be where you thrive. Uh, so quick breakdown. And this isn't the full RPGs Uncovered rules tutorial that you would get from that other series because this is just an interview. But the basics of the game, the way I like to break down the basics of the game and understand a game is through looking at it through the lens of themes, rules, and tools. And one of the foundations that you one of the baselines of how you experience a game and how you understand a game is through the mechanics, obviously. So mechanics create the lens through which players interpret not only their characters' actions, but what's important to a particular game in that particular setting and how they most effectively go about taking that action within the setting, within the system. In this system, obviously we talked about you use cards. We've talked about why you've used cards. Uh, but as far as character creation and how you express action and action ability, you break this down in obviously the four different suits: diamond, spades, hearts, clubs, and each of them are representative of two attributes, which you refer to as potentials in this game. Uh,
Yep.
so that is broken down. Diamonds represent strength and intelligence, which is a raw codification of the power you can put behind, whether it's physical power or mental power, intellectual power. Spades focuses on finesse and ingenuity, which is again physical or mental quickness. Hearts is fortitude or willpower, physical or mental resiliency. And clubs represents presence and charisma, your social control, either from a physical understanding and application of social control or from the mental side of social control. Uh, why is it you chose to break them down like that?
Well, the the potentials, and I did pick that instead of attributes because attributes are they have their own like history behind them. Like people think this isn't an attribute. This is this has certain implications behind it. Potentials are just this is your limit on skills. It's the bridge between the deck of cards and the skills that you have. And I needed a way to tie the two together because the cards again, the cards in your deck must matter
Mm-hmm.
or the deck building is useless.
Right.
It has to matter what cards you've chosen to put in your deck and how that represents your character, because if that doesn't matter, then your character is all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And the potentials are then there to tie the suit to the skill, because each skill has a potential that it's attached to. So athletics or brawling is attached to strength, which means if you have a high potential in strength, that means you can put more skill points into your athletics or brawling skills. And that also then means that when you go back to your deck, if you have more diamonds in the deck, you're better, you better or more often succeed when
Right.
using athletics and
You're more
brawling.
likely to draw those bonuses to make it more likely to
Exactly.
succeed. Yeah.
And there
Nice.
are other suits that like also help similar ones. For example, investigation. As you level it up, you'll get like a +1 when diamonds show up. So instead of just having a +1 whenever red cards, you have a +2 when diamonds show up. The second card that shows up, or the second suit that you can get is a spades, because mental quickness also helps investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that like, oh, well, also now my spades, instead of giving me a -1 because it's off color, now just gives me a 0. So now even if I draw spades when I'm doing investigation, I get the number on the card at least. That's still good, right? So there's some of those like splits. I think animal handling
Mm-hmm.
is clubs, and then hearts is like another unique one. Persuasion is just like clubs and then spades, because it's a social skill, so it's going to keep all the same black
Mm-hmm.
ones.
Right.
Um,
And
Enlightenment.
that's going down the skill tree side of
Oh, sorry,
things.
yeah, right. But yeah, as like the pieces like that, as the goal was to make again make suits matter that are in your deck, and that's why the potentials are the way they are, is to connect the two.
Right. Right. So if that's a great time to bring up the deck building aspect. The default deck you have your starting uh what 18
22
cards,
cards.
20, it's starting 22 cards. Well, your I want to call them attributes. How you define your potentials and how they
Oh,
add up between each other determines what extra cards you put in your deck, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, so everyone starts with 2 in every potential, and then you've got 8 points to kind of toss between them. And if the sum of them is over 6, you'll put a 7 for that suit
Mm-hmm.
instead. If it's 6, you put a 5. If it's under 6, you put a 3. So that'll kind of show just your first character has 4 cards that vary. Everybody else has the 2, 4, 6, and 8,
Mm-hmm.
and then jokers, both jokers. That's the same. That set
Right.
of 18 cards is exactly the same. The other 4 cards vary based on your character.
Right. So it's not a huge difference at character creation, but if you're better at the power side of things, you're going to have slightly better diamonds in your deck.
Yep.
Right.
You'll have a 7 of diamonds instead of a 5 of diamonds.
Right.
But like maybe you sacrificed your social ability,
Hmm.
and you have a 3 of clubs instead now.
Right, right. So it is the numbers you put in there affect and really define how likely you are to succeed based on the dice, the deck. So it's the deck
Hmm.
that matters. The numbers are just there to determine how the deck matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the best. That is a good way to put it.
Like I said, this is a very different system from what I'm used to. So some of these questions might just be me figuring it out myself.
No, it's good. It's good for the listeners too if they've like never used it before. They'll kind of catch up and I don't know, like understand it. You're asking questions for people who would be in the similar boat.
right, right. Uh, okay, and that actually ties into the skill tree side of things. Since we're talking uh, about mechanics, we can loop back to themes, but you're focused on mechanics, which I like. Uh,
I'm an engineer.
yeah,
It can't be helped.
everyone comes from different sides of things. I know I talk to some people who come from the world building side, some people come from the story writing side, or from the mechanics side. Uh, but when it comes to making these skill checks, how you actually interact with the deck and how that deck leads to actionability of your character, when making skill checks, generally you draw a card or sometimes two cards, depending on where you are in the encounter. Uh, so when you have this card, you then look at the suit and apply a modifier if it matches the color of the suit associated
Yep.
with what you're doing. Then there's specific skill modifiers. So if you have a skill point in a specific skill, you get a +1 there. And then you apply the skill tree, the general skill modifiers, and that can be more than just a bonus here or there. There's a lot of options on those skill trees that actually provide different unique abilities to interact with the deck, like saving or bringing in face cards, or looking at the top number of cards and doing certain things with them.
Yes. Yeah, to give a kind of I guess do you want me to go back over that? I've got cards now.
Yeah, provide us an example.
Okay. Sure. So let's say you draw let's say you're going to do a persuasion check and you're going to use entice, which used to be called flirt, but now it's entice. So you're trying to appeal to somebody to do something uh, by like making them feel better about themselves or making this thing seem appealing just to do. So you draw a 6 of clubs. You start with the 6, and then since persuasion is uh, it's a black skill, then you'll get a +1 for it being on color. And let's say you have 1 point in that one of the specific skills entice, so we're going to add 1 point for that because the specific skills is associated to the entire persuasion general skill. So if you're following along, we're now at 8. And then finally, um, because you have that 1 point in there, you can put a point in the skill tree. And in the skill tree on the right-hand side, the first point you put in would get you a clubs. So whenever a clubs is present, you'll get an additional +1. That'll make this a 9.
Mm-hmm.
Now, conversely, you've drawn a 6 of diamonds instead. Uh, well, it's the wrong color, so you're going to get a -1 just to start. So we go from a 6 wrong color down to a 5. You still get a +1 for being entice, brings us back to a 6. And then you check for the clubs. There's no clubs, so you're at a 6. Because you're good at enticing somebody, this still remains a 6. If instead you had no points in entice or wanted to try disgust instead, but you weren't like skilled in disgust, this would be a 5 instead of a 6.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
this, as an example, would be a 7, an 8, sorry, instead of a 9.
right, right. Yeah, and if I recall from the guide, I don't have the page up right now, but an 8 is an average difficulty.
Yeah,
Somewhere around an 8, yeah.
I like to think that 8 is what your freelancers will come into and be like, okay, this is where we're going to be challenged.
Hmm.
There are sixes occasionally. I'll throw those in, sixes and sevens, but for level one characters, I think sometimes fits.
Hmm.
And then as you get higher, as like level 10, somewhere around there, you start putting around like 9 or 10 more difficult things.
Hmm.
But the system itself sort of caps out some place around like
Right, right.
14 or 16. So you're never going to see numbers higher than that. So it's a little
Hmm.
bit of a smaller band than what a lot of people are used to.
Right, right. And I will say, trying to follow along, example flow of narrative, can be a little jarring. I know it, but if you go and you pick up the quick start guide, the freelancer's guide, and you can take a look at the provided character sheets on there. You can take a look at the skill trees, and you can have a deck of cards with you. It all really makes sense. This is a game that definitely benefits from having physical materials in front of you. At least at start. Once you pick it up, you'll begin to memorize how each of these different things work. But I know I'm a fairly visual person, um, so having a cheat sheet of being able to reference the skill trees, being able to look at the card and look at how the values go up and down based on your character sheet is definitely helpful. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what the character sheet is there for.
I spent quite a lot of time trying to make this as easy to understand as possible, and I do know that uh, there are still struggles, right? There's still struggles with learning how a card works, and I get it. Uh, but like in my opinion, this is the best way to represent a character. Somebody who likes
Yeah.
character advancement, who likes mechanics, informing narrative, informing character growth. I do think that the C22 system aspect of it is the best at
Hmm.
that. I don't think there's anything I've encountered yet
And
mechanically that is better.
And that's a great segue into leveling up and upgrading your deck, because
Oh,
after
right.
missions, you can make yourself more likely to succeed at things with trading out different cards. And then as you level up, you can also manipulate your deck. So as you were saying, you did define the mechanics of how you work with the deck to really be an actual representation of how good you are, how likely you are to succeed at things.
Yeah, and
How did you go about
um,
balancing that sort of thing? Dice, you can look at numbers and statistics and curves, but cards, how did you go about balancing that?
um, so that one was a lot of just. I spent a couple lunch breaks at work going through the cards and being like, okay, this is sort of what is the average. I knew what kind of target numbers I was looking for, and I knew about how often you'd be above or below it. That's how I did the balancing of that. It's only a loose balance. Like I know for a game that says like uh, maybe reading it, hopefully it feels very meticulous and well thought out.
Hmm.
I hope. Uh, that may be a little jarring to note that like the deck itself, in my opinion, it's not solved. I don't know what the best deck building method is. I don't know what the best cards to have in your deck at a time. I have general ideas, but I do think it is a little bit more situational.
I think that also encourages, or I should say helps facilitate different characters feeling different from each other, because everyone's going to have a different strategy to how they build their deck, what
Yep.
cards they replace.
Yeah. Do they want to go and put space cards in their deck first, or do they want to get higher numbers?
Right.
For example, just to cover some of that deck building, let's say you've got your six, and you get deck building and level up, but you also, whenever you fail with a black joker, whenever you draw it after you do the check, you're also going to get to do a card upgrade. So you'll get one. Sometimes you'll just be given them from the dealer, so you'll get one or two a session, and then during a level up, you'll get one or two.
And the black joker is a critical failure.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a zero and no suit,
Right.
so it's not an automatic failure, but it's a little hard to work around.
Right. Cool, cool.
So just a number card. You take one card of one number and replace it with a card of one higher number. So, sure, you can replace it with a seven of diamonds to keep your deck the same. But instead, let's say you wanted to be more social and didn't really care about your power, you can swap it out with a seven of
Hmm.
clubs.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, which it sounds like a little change, but over the course of multiple upgrades really helps diversify characters from one to another.
Mhm. And you'll feel it. Like you'll be like, oh, I got rid of all my twos, so now I'm never going to see these twos again. Now I have just threes in my deck. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and like you feel those little things, especially when you get like the first 9 or the first 10 out, and you're like, that's I got that 10. I'm crushing whatever this
Hmm.
skill check is. That 10 is gonna it's
Yeah, now
gonna
you have
rock.
less tens. Yeah.
Yeah, less chance of failures.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's also important to keep in mind that you're playing with a deck of 22 cards. You're not using the full 54. So there
Hmm.
is a lot more probability you can play around with, and that probability has a much smaller band. So yeah, if you get really lucky on a good pull and you draw a 10 and an 8, well, yeah, you're doing really good now, but that means you have 20 cards in your deck and you're down some high numbers. So you're
Yep.
more likely to for things to you can almost predict in a way your
Hmm.
likelihood of success or failure.
Yeah, that's the one another like difficulty with the deck of cards is like there's a history to a deck, right? Like
Yeah.
as you have all the cards out, you go, oh guys, I all my eights have been drawn. Uh, so I'm not going to do great on whatever this next check is. Though once you draw a joker, it resets it.
Mhm.
Everything refreshes.
Well, I think that, and I don't know if this was intentional or if I'm drawing a little bit too far into this, but that does have a very narrative feel to me because it's exhausting doing things correctly over and over again. So if you're succeeding on a number of things, you eventually burn yourself out, and yeah, eventually you're gonna have to draw that 3, and you're just gonna have to be bad at things for a little bit until you get your second win back. Was that a design choice, or did it just happen to come out that
That's a happy accident.
way? Okay.
I would love to take credit for that, but I I understand mechanics, but that was just a happy accident.
some of the best advancements in all fields are happy accidents.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about regular skill checks, and I know we're coming up on time here, so I'm
Ooh.
cherry picking some of my questions. Uh, one of the other tools that you use here to help define how actions work are boards, and that is your means of expressing extended tasks or complex tasks. Tell us a little bit about boards.
Yeah. So I I like to use these, yeah, to either encapsulate a scene or one specific task that needs a couple of different checks. And I'll use them to both physically represent what's happening. And I do have a blog post actually about this specific topic. But I'll lay out all of the cards. Let's say I have 4 cards to lay out because I think this is a that difficult of a task. And I'll put the goal card on number slot 3, which means that you need 3 successes before 2 failures to pass this check,
Mm.
because whatever card gets placed on that last piece of the board is uh the final check. And you'll kind of compare how many successes and failures you had in the whole task to get a general idea of it. But also what this does help is you can take a look at the cards underneath and use the suits of those cards to inspire what that check will be. If people can't figure out, like, people don't want to offer up, I'm going to use my altered nebula powers right now to reshape that wall into a door for us or into just an opening. But people don't have these ideas of what they want to use. You can then go, okay, let's flip it up to spades. Okay, so um, the alarms are now blaring, and smoke is starting to pour out. So now it's a little easier to be stealthy because like the whole sounds of now like
Mm.
start to cover your thing. Sure, you're already alerted, but you're in a tense situation. You've already alerted the guards, but now the situation has caused it to become um, better for your finesse type skills. And in this case, I
Right.
used stealth as an example. So that's one of the benefits I find with cards in the physical task, and the fact that in physical play you can just see them all out.
Mm-hmm.
Online play, you can use playingcards.io,
Mm-hmm.
and that uh, that allows you to set out a board as well, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
those physical tracking.
Yeah, there, that is a good thing to mention. Online play. This definitely works for online play. There's a lot of tools for deck-based games on online play. I know Roll20 has deck features. Uh,
I,
Tabletop
I
Simulator has
can't.
deck features. Hmm?
Tabletop Simulator probably can do it. I don't know if Roll20 can.
No.
I actually have not checked Roll20.
Okay.
Just a heads up. I'm if maybe someone else can check it and see if Roll20 works. But the way that the deck works, it needs certain uh you can't like sometimes you'll hit the shuffle and recall button and then all the cards will come back and then you have to reset your deck every
Ah,
time
I
and
see.
it's really annoying.
I see.
Playing cards in IO does not do that. You can take and customize what cards go into the deck.
Cool, cool.
So when you recall and shuffle, it keeps all 22, or as you add more face cards, 25 or 26 or whatever, and it pulls all those back, but not any extras.
Nice, nice. Well, thanks for sharing that then. Okay, so let's see. I think that's a pretty good overview of how the game is played. Can you do you see anything I'm missing? I mean, obviously there's a whole
Um,
book to go over, but the basic features of how to play the game. We talked about stats. We talked about a little bit about skill trees and how the cards influence the likelihood of skill successes. We talked about extended tasks.
I do want to mention something I don't always get to mention, but I do think it really helps emphasize that the deck is your character.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a mechanic called soaking, where you can remove the top card of your deck and you put it off into like the lost, the removed pile, the lost pile, whatever it is. I think removed is the term I use. Lost is what Gloomhaven uses. But you'll take that out of your deck to prevent one damage. And in
Mm.
this way, you're sacrificing the cards in your deck so that you don't die. Because
Hmm.
the system, Freelancer's Guide is very deadly. Like guns do a base of 12 or 13 damage, and you start with 8 health.
Mm.
So you're going to need to take cards from your deck. If you get shot by something and it's a direct hit, you're going to need to take cards from your deck to prevent you from dying. So that can be interesting in a way that, like, let's say you draw your 2 when you're soaking. Well, your deck is now better.
Yeah.
You you have less 2s.
Yeah.
But if you take and lose your 8 or your 6, well, I guess you've been crippled by this shot. But in a
Hmm.
way, like that ability to toss those cards to not die uh, does really represent like you're sacrificing a little bit of your character.
Hmm.
And you get those cards back during downtime and other moments like that where you can rest and finally recover. But
So
I
they
just
so they
wanted to point
don't
out
come
that like
back.
that.
They don't come back when you have to reshuffle. They only come back
Correct.
on downtime. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the difference of the discard pile. The discard pile comes back whenever you need to reshuffle, whenever you
Mm.
finished whenever a joker shows up. But the removed cards, you got to go to a medical bay for that.
Nice. Nice.
I think by default you can get 2 back. During any downtime you can get 2. If you've got on your ship, you've like got a medical bay, you can increase it to I think I have 4. Oh wait, no. You can always get 2 back if you have a medical bay on your ship. Doesn't matter what action you take. But if you take like a long rest and recovery action, then you can get up to 10 back.
Mm.
But then you've spent your whole downtime action, which means you can't go train, you can't go find new contacts, you can't go and gadgeteer new gear together. Um, if you have a
Right.
base with a medical bay, you can get like 6 without doing anything,
Right.
something like that.
So
Depends on
the
what I wrote down in the book.
so your deck is not just dice. It's not just a randomizer that you chose. It is as much part of your character as your HP pool is. The more you
Yeah,
have to the
yeah.
more
I
you have
mean,
to spend from it, the you're giving up of yourself, the lesser that character is going to be.
yeah. It's as equally as important as your character sheet
Nice. Nice. I like
in
it.
representing your character.
Yeah, I didn't come across that, but I will be honest, I didn't focus too much on combat when looking through this. Uh, but that's a really nice rule. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I think that one starts coming up in like the being a freelancer chapter near the end around death is somewhere around where
Mm.
it's covered. If you can find
Hmm.
the section on death, should be right before that.
Very nice. Very nice.
And that's a rather mechanical section as you the second half of it is a rather mechanical section for the
Yeah.
being a freelancer.
Okay, well, we are coming up at time here. So I will just quickly mention, I think we talked about most of this. It just may have been in a different order than I had initially written it out, which is great. That's why I like these interviews to be more conversations than just,
Mhm.
back and forth asking questions. But let's see, some tools to leave you guys off with as far as what to look forward to in the game and what to look forward to from the actual Kickstarter rulebook once that's all set up. As far as tools for helping you actually run the game and understand the game, you talked a bit. You talked a bit about that uh, sector map creation, and I know you've been posting on Twitter a really cool image of deck-based
Oh
face
yeah.
maps. Could
Yeah,
you?
that was an idea that came to me about again a little over a month ago, and I was like, this would be really cool to have like this unique deck of cards that forms a space map. And if you haven't seen it, um, I'm very excited to get that printed.
Mhm,
But that is another way to make your galaxy. You
mhm.
just draw those up and lay out planets next to each other and like, okay, this is what our galaxy looks like.
Yeah,
This is what our sector map looks like.
nice,
That was also where it was inspired from, was I could just use that deck of cards with this space map.
nice,
And that's
nice.
going to be unique to the Kickstarter. So if the Kickstarter funds, that deck will be only for this Kickstarter. I can make another one, but it will not be the same.
Right. Cool, cool.
The planets will be named differently. They'll be in different spots.
Hmm.
So I know if I do it again, that's what's going to happen.
Cool, 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 cool. So that's a potential tool to use. There is information and examples provided for different types of missions, from heists to pirating, raids and assassinations, missions where you just need to escape. So there's a lot of evocative examples of how to go about different missions. There is a whole little section on mission rewards as far as loot and items. There's a whole extensive equipment section. I know you mentioned earlier one of the things you're looking at with Kickstarter is to increase the amount of equipment. With it being a classless system, a lot of the character differentiation is going to be, of course, one with deck building, but two with your skill choices, and of course with your equipment choices. So a long list of equipment is super helpful. Of course, you have all the skill trees that are going to help define your characters. But on the GM side of things, there's a little like bestiary at the end, the security specs section that has a few little examples of all kinds of fun little critters. Um,
Yeah. Uh, one of them is a homage to a friend of mine's favorite band.
mm,
I don't know if you know the band King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizards.
no, but I see that here. Yeah,
Yeah,
King Gizzard.
that's all I have to say about that. Is it's a interesting psychedelic type band,
Mm.
and he's a big fan of it. So I'm like, a King Gizzard, whatever. There we go.
Nice, nice. Yeah, there's everything from little beasts to these strange, like I said, paranatural forces,
Yep.
with the different altered elements, security mechs. There's a lot of great stuff in here. You have lists of starships again up in the equipment section, and not only pre-built starships from different corporations, but the ability to mix and match your
Make your
own
own.
starship, which I love. I love creating starships. I know I'm a big fan of the old school hard boiled sci-fi's, the Traveler, um, even to an extent, Stars Without Number. So I love making starships. And as you said, being able to find a map and be like, this is what this room is, and this is where I sleep, and this is I find that super fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did too. I'm a big fan of that.
so a lot
The
of
same thing is I want to do the same thing with bases, actually. I have the
nice.
same system sort of set up for bases. It's not included in the free version because I haven't tested it as much, but it it also obviously, I can't put everything in the free
Mhm.
version.
So that's something that's going to be in the full core rulebook.
Yes.
Nice. I do love me some base building. Love me some base
Yeah,
building.
and there's something like I find this very interesting, but I included fronts. Like there's a restaurant front or a mechanic front or a hotel slash casino front. So your base has a front that's the hotel, and then your base is behind it.
Nice.
And there's rules on what that does for you and what
Right.
that adds because you're you're supposed to be hidden.
Hmm. Right.
Some of them are. Some of the bases can just be on a planet that no one goes to.
Hmm.
You know, you could be on Mustafar, and
No.
nobody goes to Mustafar. It's filled with lava.
No, I really like that, having a front, because that's not only a disguise but also a way to, you know, launder the money you make from illicit freelancer
Yeah,
jobs and whatnot, and
create more
provides,
stories.
yeah, create more stories with different people coming in and interacting with the front, either legitimately or knowing it's a front sort of thing. Yeah, I really like that. So it
Mhm,
does seem like there's a lot of really cool stuff coming with the core rulebook after this Kickstarter, but there is also a ton of stuff in the Freelancer's Guide that you can check out. I definitely recommend going and picking that up. I can link the website again, throw that in chat if Nightbot will let me. And of course, you can find not only the Freelancer's Guide on there, but also the general game rules, the SRD, so you can play around with making your own little settings and whatnot, or just exploring the mechanics from your own standpoint. But the Freelancer's Guide has a lot of great information in here. Definitely some things that I'm really looking forward to seeing expanded on, and maybe refined a little bit from the core rulebook. But there is a lot of great information in the Freelancer's Guide. It's a free PDF that's over 100 pages long. It has pretty much everything you need to be a player and a GM, as especially if you are familiar with a cyberpunk sci-fi genre. But there's definitely information on travel and technology, mega corporations,
mhm.
various environments, um,
The
it,
weird altered creatures that make up the world.
right, different creatures, the altered entities, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but they do remind me of Control, if you're familiar with that video game.
It's on my list.
Paranatural forces.
I
You
I
should
might
play
even
that.
own it. I just haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of that from reading over some of the altered entities and some of the things you can do with that. So there's a lot of great stuff here. A classless system, a deck-based system. So if you're looking for something different than just rolling dice and looking at a character sheet, picking from a menu of different abilities and whatnot, this is a way to get into the sci-fi genre without going, the more without going into Shadowrun or Cyberpunk. And I think each of those games have their own pros and cons, and this game definitely fits in there as another option for you to take, and a very interesting option it would be. I actually can't wait to get a chance to play this. This is a game that I definitely have on my own list of no, just personal home games that I want to give a try to. And definitely once the Kickstarter is through and we have the full core rulebook, I am definitely going to be checking that out, because I think there is a lot of great information in here and a lot of great inspiration for games. So yeah, if you're looking for a sci-fi system, and like I said, it's something new other than just rolling dice, definitely go check this out. It's free. There's literally no reason for you not to pick it up. But of course, if you are interested in it, definitely go over to the Kickstarter. There's a lot of really cool information coming down the pipe about what's going to be involved there. And what do we have? We're sitting at what, 19 days left on that?
Yep, I think so. It's 19 days. Yeah, like there's actually we could probably get like the drive-through link. You know, grab the free version off the drive-through RPG. Check it out if you like it. Go check out the Kickstarter page. You know, or if you just check out the Kickstarter page and decide off of that, that'd be great for me too. But
Hmm.
I do recommend take a look at the book. I do think it's got, and I know this is like I'm biased, but I do think it has some of the most interesting mechanics
Hmm.
to an RPG in a while. Um, and this is not to knock on any other RPGs. I think there are a lot of really great RPGs out there that have inspired my own stuff,
Hmm.
and I'm more of a mechanics person.
Right.
At
Right.
least that's
Uh,
my draw to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually been a lot of conversation recently about mechanics, and when people talk about mechanics, their first question is, "What dice do you use?" And now you can answer that question with none, cards.
Yep.
uh, yeah, and as you said, it really makes the deck feel like part of the character a lot more than dice feel like part of the character.
Yeah.
Uh, so a very different feel to other TTRPG games, but it looks like such a fun feel to it.
Yeah, and you can then get a deck of whatever you like,
Yeah, yeah.
and now your deck can be sushi. Well, in this case, you can't because this one's only 52 cards, so there's no jokers.
Hmm.
But you can find a deck that has that and represents your character in a way that dice can't, because now you've got whatever image you want on that deck.
Yeah, yeah, and just like people are dice hoarders, you get
Yeah,
personalized dice for each of your characters. You can go get
I
your
have
own
a
deck.
whole deck of cards behind me.
Nice, nice. Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you get on with your day because it's early morning over there for you. Uh,
Yeah,
so I mean, first of all, most especially, thanks for joining me. Thanks for
thanks
bringing
for
this
having
game
me.
to my attention. And working with me with time zones and all that to have this conversation. Because, like I said, I've really enjoyed looking over, not only just looking over the rule system, but talking with you and getting to know you, getting to know your game. This has been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, thank you. This has been good for me as well. I've enjoyed I've enjoyed this. It was a little earlier than I'm normally up,
Hmm.
but it was still uh yeah, still very fun. I appreciate you checking out my stuff and like all the nice things you've had to say about it, because like it's, as a developer, that's what I want, right? I
Hmm.
want people to play my game.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like,
love talking with developers, with the creators. They are the most enthusiastic person about their game, obviously, and I love that enthusiasm. I love the knowledge. I love creators that want to share their creations just for the sake of other people experiencing it.
yeah, that's
And
what it's for.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, throw out some final marketing, direct people where you want to go, whether that be other actual plays, your website, the Kickstarter. What do you want to leave people
Yeah,
with?
obviously there's the Kickstarter, the website. There's even a design blog that I do for other in development
Hmm.
TRPGs on there. They're a lot less polished than probably what you'll see here. I think you've had a little bit more polished games at this point there. So yeah, if you want to just see some like some a lot of newer developers coming up with some of their interesting ideas and such, as well, as they're refining it still, I do some design reviews there, and that's on my C22 system.com/design insight. The I do recommend checking out Role Players' actual play of this. They're a really interesting group of people with some character designs that I did not expect.
Hmm.
You'll be able to see that early on as I try to adapt and how to be a dealer for them. But it was a lot of fun. It's a little different than my playtest style. They're a lot more improv. They're like their strength is all improv, while my playtest group is all like, they really enjoy the planning, right?
Hmm.
And the game can be played with like 30 minutes of planning for each section, but like we're having fun talking about how all these possibilities could line up and then it could ruin our plan. We're going to do that. So yeah, I recommend checking their stuff out, because it was just a fun time,
Awesome.
and the best way to see how like the game is run.
Yeah, yeah. The demo plays are super helpful. Speaking of which, the my demo play is going to be tomorrow. We have RPGs Uncovered at its regularly scheduled time. That's tomorrow, Sunday at 2 p.m. EST. That is going to be the penultimate episode of our heroic chord demo play, The Creeping Tangle. So if you want to take a look at another new indie TTRPG that we're playing, that is a sort of post-apocalyptic pastoral fantasy game. Very creative, very narrative, very collaborative storytelling based. Um, Focuses on keyword mechanics, which is really fun. But you can go check that out on either down in the VODs here or go over to our YouTube page. We have that linked down below. That is the most relevant upcoming announcement, and I know I have a one shot coming up, not next Saturday, but the Saturday after that, the 19th. That is going to be part 2 of our Lugon project setting highlight. So you can find that over. You can find the first part of that over on our YouTube as well. That is a Pathfinder First Edition setting, all about exploring how magic and fantastical creatures would lurk would work through the lens of scientific evolutionary theory. Very interesting setting.
Ooh,
So that's what I have coming up. A lot of great things for you to check out, either on the Twitch VODs here or over on our YouTube page. And for even more things coming up, do check us out on Twitter and on Discord. I post a lot of announcements on both of them. I have even more episodes of WIP Workshop coming up in the future. I might have one. I'm still working with a creator, but I might have one coming up in another couple weeks. But I'm thinking about doing 2 per month. So I have those coming up. Of course, I have multiple seasons of RPGs Uncovered planned pretty much all the way into September. So I got a lot of content coming up there, and one-shot setting highlights. So I'm always looking for more people to work with. So if you have a game, or if you know of somebody who is making a game, message me on Discord or Twitter, and we'll talk, because I'm always interested in meeting new creators. That's all I have, and I think that's all the time we have for this. Uh, so yeah, one last time, thank you so much, Brandon, for being on here. It was great talking with you. And
thanks for having
I
me.
wish you all the best with this Kickstarter. You're pretty well on your way, really, for having 19 days left. So I wish you well
Eh,
there. And yeah, I know it's hard to look at that bar. Uh, but yeah, definitely people in the audience, anyone watching later on the VODs, go check out the Kickstarter. Every little bit helps. And this really does look like a brilliant game. I really want to see it funded, because I really want to see all those different updates to the core system and be able to play this on RPGs Uncovered. Yeah, so thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. This was a good time.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, I've had a great time. Okay, so for everybody at home, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, keep having fun, and keep checking back here at the People's Ascension for more RPGs Uncovered content. And I'll see you throughout the week for more fun stuff. Go check out the Kickstarter and
Farewell,
support
everyone.
your indie creators. Good night,
Support
good
all indie
morning,
creators.
whatever it may be where you are.